All right, 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. This meeting is being held in the council chambers, which are open to public attendance and participation. The meeting will also be live streamed for public viewing, but not participation at the link identified in the agenda. Email comments sent and received by the city clerk at least 24 hours before the meeting, and I have 2 of those, were distributed to the city council prior to the meeting. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Harris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Shaw.
Here.
Councilmember Boongarden.
Here.
Councilmember Kirchner.
Here.
Councilmember Pasquale.
Here.
All right, if we can please have everyone rise for invocation by Vice Mayor Dave Shaw, followed by Pledge of Allegiance by Tony Kerwin. Pledge of Allegiance, sir.
Rowdy corner.
Yeah, the rowdy corner.
Let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for today, and we thank you for the tremendous opportunity that we have to come together to work together for the betterment of our city. Father, I just pray that you will protect those first responders and the entire city team, because they're all first responders taking care of the needs of our city. Give us wisdom and discernment as we make decisions that's going to propel us into our future. And we ask this in your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for item number 1, or do we have any modifications to the agenda, gentlemen? Nothing? All right, item number 1 is the impact of the Johnson versus City of Grants Pass decision on the Yuba City Police Department's response to camping on public property, presented by our Police Chief, Brian Baker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'll be doing a presentation regarding the Supreme Court decision that came back a couple months ago out of the Grants Pass case, and make a few references to the Boise decision as well as it pertains to overnight camping in general on public property. So please stop me at any time throughout if you have any questions or anything like that. Shannon Chafin, our city attorney, I've asked him to step in if he thinks that I'm getting out of bounds or needs to clarify any legal issues that he's far more qualified to speak to than I. So here we go. So Grants Pass, the city of Grants Pass in Southern Oregon established an ordinance that basically said that you cannot sleep on sidewalks or alleyways, camp on public property, camping or overnight parking in city parks. It should be noted that Yuba City has a similar ordinance that deals with public and private property. And so our law is very similar in language to what Grants Pass had. So Johnson was cited for a violation of their ordinance for camping. They appealed the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. They upheld or overturned the decision of that he was guilty of this thing, and basically said that it was a cruel and unusual punishment to cite homeless folks for camping. Grants Pass, along with many other cities, Shannon's firm wrote a brief for this, heard the case, and in June of 24, they issued a ruling overturning the Ninth Circuit decision. So the decision was basically that the Grants Pass ordinance doesn't violate the Eighth Amendment right against cruel and unusual punishment, and so it reversed the Ninth Circuit ruling for that time being. The big thing that a lot of people I think are missing, and I think that sometimes what we're seeing on TV in other cities and other jurisdictions across California where this is having the biggest impact, is the case was overturned. However, it was sent back to the Ninth Circuit for further proceedings, and here's the important words, consistent with its opinion. So as the mayor would know, and working in law enforcement as long as he did, these things are never quick. And so our response, people are asking, well, what's the Yuba City Police Department doing about this? I've had people come up to me, well, the Supreme Court said you can enforce homelessness and being homeless is illegal. Well, no, it's not. And there's a lot of interpretation on what can be done, what can't be done. And so now we'll talk a little bit about what this means. So, like I mentioned earlier, we have a municipal code that addresses camping on public property. And Officer Koski, one of our homeless liaison officers, is here tonight, and I've welcomed him to jump in too if he has anything that he feels worthy to add as well. So we use that. However, we have an abatement process for property. So the Muni Code ordinance basically says that unless there's an immediate threat to health and safety, you know, whatever that will be that one of our officers can determine, we need to notify the people, give them a 72-hour notification, and then we will come back and abate the property. Troy has a lot of success in going down and meeting with folks. We're fortunate. We don't have a lot of big encampments in the public eye. City of Sacramento, you know, a lot of people familiar with, they had a lot of encampments around the courthouse down there, and they're still dealing with that issue. Here, our folks camp down in the river bottoms area to where it's still a hazard, it's a health hazard, but it's not in the foyer of City Hall. It's not on the steps of the courthouse. So we're lucky. So Troy and his folks will go out and they will notice these people when they find encampments down in the river bottoms area. And usually they get pretty good compliance. So, and they'll even help the people try and get some of their stuff moved and get them to a better place, get them to Hands of Hope, get them to a better way over in Marysville. They'll go back in the 3 days, and usually what's left is a bunch of rubbish. They load it into the trailer and we dispose of it. So there's no magic bullet or magic pill that is going to solve this issue of homelessness. It's a very difficult issue. It's a very sensitive issue on both sides of it. You have to be, you know, you have to balance an individual's rights to be able to move freely versus the rights of the community to live in a clean and safe environment. In talking to Shannon earlier tonight, there's no real clear answer to what does back to the Ninth Circuit for further proceedings actually mean. So we're still going to wait on that and see what they come back with. We enforce our ordinances. The majority of what we do is on the enforcement arm of it, when we're not trying to educate and or get folks help, is the citations or arrest for camping on private property. We have countless letters from business owners, other property owners, allowing us to enforce trespassing rules for these folks. And when we find them on private property, they're cited and the site's abated. And like I talked about earlier, it's a lot easier for us to enforce this private property camping than the public because the courts have proven time and time again that people have a right to their own private property and to maintain it how they want to. For me and for the department, we have to make a fair and balanced approach to minimize the risk to the city for potential liability claims. I've seen several articles as recent as this week where other jurisdictions are passing ordinances or Muni Code amendments that are saying that people have to move from a park bench every hour, or you can't sleep in your car for more than 60 minutes, or you have to move at least 300 feet every 24 hours. That's all well and good, but in my business, everyone has to be treated fair, and we can't be out here with disparate treatment. So that hour would also mean the kid sitting on a bench with his grandpa reading a book at the park. And if somebody complains about that at 61 minutes, if we gave a person experiencing homelessness a citation the day before, the expectation would be that those same people would get a citation for the exact same violation. I don't want to see us do that as a community. I don't think that's a solution to the problem. I don't think it's a reasonable solution. I think a lot of these things, because this is such a passionate topic for many people, these new ordinances and rules that people are making are going to get tied up in court, and bad facts make bad laws. And so these folks are going to create, I think, a situation to where they're doing these mass cleanups and various things to where at some point a judge is going to bring down an injunction and we're going to be right back to where we are. I don't have that crystal ball to say that's 100% absolute, but in my experience of this job and in talking to Troy, these are the things that we've seen happen in the past with other issues. So, Troy, if you wouldn't mind stepping up, Governor Newsom's executive order came out a month ago, so now, talking about cleaning up encampments and withholding money. Troy watched a webinar that dealt with that, so if you want to address that, Troy.
They came out and they tried to explain exactly what the order meant, although Governor Newsom came out with some strong language about the ability now to move camps and that he would withhold money if cities and counties didn't clean up their camp areas. The main thing that they said was that what the order actually is an order for cities and jurisdictions to start creating plans to move camps out. And they specifically said what the order is not. It is not an order to go out and just start moving camps out. So unfortunately what was said in public and then what they've said in the webinar counteracts. And there were many, many different questions from different law enforcement agencies asking, well, you said you were going to withhold our monies if we didn't go out and do these things, but now you're telling us that you don't want us to do those things. That was kind of the main takeaway. And I think from the city's perspective, we actually have a great program for the abatements. We take the teams out to move people, try and get them to move towards housing. And then the abatement and the citations are kind of the last thing to come if they just fail to leave.
Thank you. So, like I've mentioned, this issue is far from a final resolution. We're waiting on the courts. We're waiting on other ideas, solutions. So our goal that I would recommend to the city is that we continue to work with our community members and create in an effort to create a safe, nice city for our residents to live in, and that we continue to try and find partnerships with service providers to be able to get these folks into some housing and off the streets, whether that be some shelters or whatever we could get to come our way, and to try and address the problem that way, because this isn't an issue that we can enforce our way out of. These people, Troy has countless, stories that he can tell about, you cite somebody today, you cite them next Tuesday, you cite them, they never go to court, they end up with, 12 failure to appears, but yet they're still homeless on the street. So enforcement is not the only way out of it, but I think that we do a good job in keeping people moved along, and we will continue to do what we can within the law, at the same time not exposing the city to liability or lawsuits. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Through the mayor, no questions, Chief. The questions that you alluded to getting are the same ones I think I've been getting. Is okay, they've had this, court decision. Why aren't you guys doing anything? So I appreciate the opportunity for you to explain to us, but also to those in the community, what we are doing and what we continue to try to do. And I agree with you. It's going to be a combined effort between the city and all of its partners in regards to dealing with this problem that certainly isn't solo to the city of Yuba City. So I appreciate the update, and I hope people will better understand that we're doing what we can do, and we'll continue to monitor and do whatever we can do to address not only getting those folks who need a hand up, but also those folks who are doing the criminal stuff. We'll be able to take care of them as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Through the mayor. Chief, how aggressive do we work with the neighborhood watches?
So we had a fairly decent neighborhood watch program. However, unfortunately, in the last probably year, our community policing coordinator who facilitated that program was out for a substantial period of time. I'm pleased to announce that starting Monday, we have a new community policing coordinator starting. And so that is a top priority to get those reestablished and to get more eyes and ears out there and being able to better report crimes that are happening in neighborhoods.
I know from a personal standpoint, I'm in a location where there's a church that used to like to be frequented. And me being vigilant of getting out and confronting them, in the last year, they don't like eyes on them, is what I found. And so if we could some way train our neighborhood watches to be a little bit more vigilant of being more visible and in front of them, I think it'd pay dividends, and that'd be my 2 cents of it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, any member of the public care to comment on the item? All right, thank you both very much. Appreciate the presentation and the work you do every day out there on this topic. We'll move on to item number 2, appearance of interested citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other items within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. I have 2 written requests. One from Christy Macy. Is Christy in the room here? Okay, Christy, step on up. The second one, Bijan, in looking further in the agenda and the topic of your card, that applies to item number 9. And so I'm going to take your 5 minutes during that item when we're talking about the rev measure. Okay? And if anybody else in the room would like to speak after Mrs. Macy has spoken, please cue yourself up. You're nodding, so you're right behind her. All right, very good. Have at it.
Good evening.
All right.
My name is Christy Macy, as you said. I live at 654 Tabor Avenue in Yuba City. This is a residence that's located within a couple blocks of Yuba City High School, Park Avenue, Charter School. I'm here tonight to bring attention to a problem that I'm dealing with my neighbor, and an opportunity for you guys to understand kind of a bigger problem that's happening within the city and within our community. There have been 3 years of dangerous activities, deplorable conditions occurring at my house, the neighbor's house next door. The address of that house is 640 Tabor Avenue. And our 2 properties are kind of unique in the way that they sit. They have access both on the front of the property and on the back. And my neighbor's property basically end caps the block, and it's directly across the street from Beehive, just to try to provide some sort of context of where this sits. I've owned this property since 2003, and I've lived next door to my neighbor, David Hope, for the entirety of this time. He had inherited this property after his mom died, and he's developmentally delayed and elderly man. He began to express in 2021 that his inability to take care of his property. He was always involved with the community. He cared about the neighborhood, and he wouldn't have let what's currently happening happen. However, instead of moving out to like a senior assisted living or some sort of property like that, he started to invite criminals and transients to his property. In my opinion, he's being taken advantage of because of some of his inability to see what the criminal activity is going on. However, the first person that he moves in is in July 2022. Jonathan Wayne Peterson, who's a well-known criminal in this area, moved in. He's schizophrenic, and until December of that year, he took complete control of that property. He stalked and harassed me and my son for the time that he was there. I could not get any assistance in, and because he's well-known, I contacted law enforcement, I contacted probation departments, and he just wasn't being supervised, but he had been released from the court, or from jail, awaiting sentencing on a violent crime. And for some sort of medical condition that wasn't apparent to me, he was at this property during this time. During him being there, aside from what I just mentioned, regular acts of intimidation, threats of violence, damage to the property. He was deflating tires on our cars, prowling, killing cats, and leaving them on my driveway. In December of 2022, he was arrested after a really violent evening and threats that were made to me and my son. He's currently not capable of standing trial. As soon as he was arrested, a woman named Antonia Madrid moved in, and she has a long criminal history of manufacturing methamphetamine. And since then, the amount of deplorable conditions has escalated. The criminal organization is all I can call it that's happening, including methamphetamine manufacturing, selling, prostitution, selling animals, has gone on for 2.5 years. At some point at the end of 2023, I was told by law enforcement that I should file a lawsuit to seek some sort of, because hands are tied, and the presentation prior to this discusses some of that and the concern around liability. So I went through the process of filing a civil lawsuit, and in February, I received a judgment of $1 million and for all nuisance activity to stop immediately. I want to stop and say that I reported a lot of this and has been in regular contact with code enforcement. And I'm not here to demonize any of these agencies or talk about shame or anything like that. I'm here to literally share this crazy opportunity for you guys to be aware of kind of what is happening next door is a transient flop house. That's all I can describe it. It is a constant turnover. The two mains are Mr. Hope and Mrs. Madrid. Crime is being committed. I'm regularly threatened because of my turning in and calling and being the pest. I'm the only property owner that shares a property line with this. However, I'm not the only one that's concerned about this, and I represent a number of neighbors who are worried about coming forward. I received the judgment. I've been talking to code enforcement. The last time that code enforcement, I believe, was out in April. And I believe at this point, this organization is doing whatever they want. They have been told, not told, but not abated, and it's
All right,
getting
if
worse.
you didn't know that beep was your 5 minutes, but we got the address, and I have a feeling that folks standing behind you are aware
I
with
just wanted to share this information.
Message received.
I did get a call from Yuba City PD this afternoon before I got here, and I'm hopeful. And I will be coming back to see if there's anything that I can do to assist. I have a lot of information.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, ma'am. Are you sure you don't want to speak?
I think she has
All right,
something
very
to
good.
say. Yeah. Good afternoon, Councilman, Vice Mayor, and Mayor. My name is Julie Rentner Harrison. I live at 2424 Jefferson Avenue, and I've addressed you before at previous meetings. I'm speaking tonight. I just apologize
Just
for my
one second.
voice. Yeah.
Tony, did you get her name? Okay, yeah, not your fault, but you're right. Your voice is, you're sick or something. So
yeah.
if you could please just repeat your name, please.
Julie Rentner Harrison.
We good? Okay, and we can start your time over too. You live in Yuba City, I'm assuming?
Technically, I live in the county, although
Okay.
my mailing address is in
That's
the
fine.
city.
That's fine. We just need to get that. Did you have something more?
Go ahead.
I cannot hear her.
Oh, can you just speak up a little
Well,
bit,
or can
please?
they turn up the volume behind us?
Yeah, I'm trying hard. I'm fighting.
We'll get the guy working on that.
Pushing hard. I'm here.
There's the man right there. He knows all the answers right there.
He does.
There, you can already hear you better.
Okay. Oh, very good. That sounds better. Thank you.
All right.
I'm
Now
here
go.
to speak with you about the Tierra Buena traffic study and the committee that the council formed to try to, come up with some solutions for traffic improvements in the Tierra Buena neighborhood. As I've addressed the council before and let you guys know, my house has frontage right on Jefferson Road in a place where county or city planning has proposed to create a major thoroughfare on Jefferson Avenue through to Harder Parkway to try to alleviate some of the traffic congestion in the growing Tierra Buena neighborhood. My home is in the county. And I've been told by the committee organizers that because of my residency being in the county, I'm not allowed to participate in the ad hoc committee on traffic patterns in the Tierra Buena neighborhood. So I'm here to ask the council to consider finding some way to include residents of the county in the committee that has been formed to address traffic patterns that might go through my front yard. As you guys know, one of the primary solutions for the traffic problems in Tierra Buena neighborhood runs not only through my front yard, but actually across my property on an easement that the county holds for transit. So I would deeply appreciate being involved in that committee or the city finding a way to include non-city residents in that committee. I also wanted to share with you some recent happenings. On the evening of September 6th, thankfully, my family was not around. We went out for dinner at a friend's house. When we returned to our home, we discovered that around 7:30 in the evening, a drunk driver coming from the new development on Harder Parkway, from Walmart, through the new development, busting around Ruth Avenue and onto Jefferson right in my front yard, lost control of their vehicle and drove into my front yard. They destroyed our front fence, blasted our mailbox 15 feet in the air, left behind so much debris from their vehicle that we could identify the year, make, and model successfully. Those people have now been, the folks who are responsible have been interviewed by the CHP, and we're taking care of the property damage. If we had made one different decision that night and invited our friends over to have dinner with us instead of going to their house, we could have lost a life. My 3 small children, who are aged 10, 8, and 7, play in that front yard constantly. Our neighbors have a 7-year-old daughter who plays in the yard constantly. A drunk driver careening through the neighborhood from the Walmart shopping center into our front yard could have been death or destruction to any of our families. It's very important. We want to be productive partners at figuring out the traffic situation in the Tierra Buena neighborhood, but we have to be able to come to the table. And presenting here to you all in council meetings simply can't be the only solution. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else care to say any comment? All right. We will move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on our consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion unless members of the city council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Consent calendar is items number 3 and 4. Do we have any public comment on that? Seeing none, we can bring it back to council for action.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Move to approve consent calendar items 3 and 4.
I will second, okay, Mr. Boomgarden will second. I have first and second to approve consent calendar items 3 and 4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, passes unanimously. Moving on to number 5, business items. Staff report for the 2025 STEP, Selective Traffic Enforcement Program grant.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Sergeant Krause with the Yuba City Police Department. I work in the Traffic Enforcement and Education Unit. And thank you for your time tonight so I can present to you the 24-25 Selective Traffic Enforcement Program grant. So the STEP grant, Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, is offered by the California Office of Traffic Safety, or OTS. It provides funding for law enforcement officers to work overtime details to conduct targeted traffic enforcement within the city to try and keep our streets safer. In August of '24, California OTS awarded the Yuba City Police Department a STEP grant in the amount of $115,000 for the fiscal year, that's the federal fiscal year of '24-25. The grant will run from October 1st, '24 to September 30th of 2025. No matching funds are required from the city. All of the enforcement operations that are done by Yuba City Department personnel are reimbursed through this grant for the year. The STEP grant will fund the following operations. So when they award the grant, they specify how we use a lot of the funds. DUI checkpoints, DUI saturation patrols. Checkpoints are the stationary ones. Saturation patrols are units roving around the city looking for DUI drivers. Collaborative DUI enforcement, that's where we bring in outside agencies to assist in patrolling Yuba City for DUIs. General traffic enforcement, it's outside of DUI, that's all traffic enforcement. Distracted driving, it's actually one of the leading causes of collisions in the state of California. Pedestrian and bicycle safety operations. Vehicle versus pedestrian collisions in the city are the leading cause of major injury and fatal collisions that we have. As much as 80% of the major injury and fatal collisions we experience in Yuba City are a vehicle versus a pedestrian, and about 80% of those, the pedestrian's legally at fault for the collision because they're in the roadway. So targeted enforcement towards pedestrian, something towards pedestrians in or about the roadway, or something near and dear to my heart, because it's, like I said, the leading cause of major injury and fatal collisions in the city. Motorcycle safety enforcement, street racing and sideshow enforcement operations. Collaborative traffic enforcement operations, again, bringing outside agencies in to assist us. That has been very effective with the street racing and sideshow enforcement that we've done in the city. We've managed to waylay a lot of those events that were occurring in Yuba City, and the word has gotten out. They do those things out in county or in other municipalities now because we have such a strong enforcement presence for that in particular. The grant also funds travel expenses for traffic-related trainings. That's for sending officers to get specialized traffic enforcement training or DUI detection training. Checkpoint supplies. DUI checkpoints are among the most expensive operations that we do. They require a lot of personnel and equipment, fuel, generators, lights, cones. The grant will help fund those supplies. And it'll also fund the purchase of 2 in-vehicle radar devices to outfit patrol vehicles with radar so they can effectively patrol and do speed enforcement. The City of Yuba City and the Yuba City Police Department has a long-standing history of working with California OTS. The effort is to make our roadways safer for our community. The Yuba City Police Department's recommendation is to accept this grant and immediately begin deploying officers in an effort to deter unsafe driving behaviors that threaten our community members. The alternative is to not accept the grant and look for funding or enforcement operations in other areas. Proved difficult to find $115,000 from the state to fund those operations from other places.
All right, we got to do a public hearing here. The public hearing for the 2025 STEP grant is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on the issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council.
Through the mayor?
Yep.
Is there a few meetings ago, we had a gentleman in here about the tinted windows on passenger and driver's sides of the vehicles. Is there any way we can incorporate stepping up that enforcement? Because personally, I'm a motorcycle rider, and not being able to eye somebody when you're going 65 miles an hour down the highway and they're going to come across at you is terrifying. And that man with the bicycle has even had the same problem at a very low speed. So that's just something I think we need to probably step up to get these tinted windows out of our community, because it's ridiculous.
For the grant, that could follow under the general traffic enforcement grant, and there's a number of categories where we could do enforcement like that. And any of the enforcement operations that we do that are specific to DUI does not preclude any other traffic violations that we see. We can absolutely give the directive to enforce window tint violations, and in fact, we do. Our motor officer is famous or infamous, depending on how the community sees him, for enforcing that violation. I know exactly what you're talking about as a motorcycle rider, going down the freeway, especially at stop signs. The reason that law exists is because it inhibits people's ability to see out of a car at night, but also because it prevents just that, what you were talking about, which is eye-to-eye communication from driver to driver, which is plays a paramount role in driver safety, especially at stop signs or things like that. You can't wave anybody through or communicate with anybody if nobody can see you. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and yes, we can absolutely push that enforcement effort out to the officers that are on these details.
Thank you. That's all.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? We can do a motion then.
Move to accept item 5 for ratification, the adopt a resolution authorizing chief of police to accept $115,000 in grant funding for the 2024 Selective Traffic Enforcement Program and approve expenditure. Authorize supplement appropriation in the amount of $115,000 to account number 100-43418, 2163-61430, 2163-62801, 2163-63801.
All right, I have a first and second to approve item number 5, B, and C. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, passes unanimously. Enjoy.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 6, conversion of 2 city-owned cell tower leases into a 50-year easement, presented by Spencer Morrison. Welcome, Spencer.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. On this item, I'm seeking approval for the council to convert 2 city-owned cell tower leases into 50-year easements. I also have on Zoom tonight our consultant from Steep Steel, James Kennedy, and coming from the Central Time Zone. So Yuba City does have 3 cell tower leases currently with Crown Castle, T-Mobile, and AT&T. These are some of the details on 806 Gray, which is Sam Brannan Park. It sits back in the corner. I've got an image here in the next slide. And 1545 Pool is at the police department. It sits in the back behind the building. As you can sort of see that the red arrows point to the approximate locations of the towers at the police department and at Sam Brannan Park. And then we have a tower, antennas currently on a city-owned tower at 824 Clark, which is Fire Station 1. And this is a lease that ends in 3 years, and we plan to demolish that tower someday, hopefully sooner than later, and so we will not be renewing that lease. And you can see what from the street looks like a little bit of like a UFO floating behind the fire department, but it's a big old obsolete empty water tower. Which the city no longer uses, by the way, and it takes up desired space that may be better used for a training ground for Station 1 expansion or construction. So we found ourselves in this position. We have 3 tower agreements that are coming up for renewal. City staff lacks expertise in these contracts or in managing these sites. Annual cash flow was not terribly significant, and site management falls on staff, IT staff, which when engineers need to access a cell tower, it's not an 8 to 5 proposition all the time. So IT, Mr. Hansen would get called out of bed to go down and let them into the police department facility or the fire department facility if need be. And then future tower technology is not certain to us. We don't know if cell towers are going to be even used in the term of a 50-year agreement. And so we'd like to transfer that risk to somebody else. So as it turns out, there's an entire industry out there that handles these issues, and they're tower management companies. We've found that they're willing to pay 50 years in advance for 50 years of, or pay in advance for 50 years of lease payments. It creates cash flow today, and it transfers the risk of tower tech changing and assumes site management. So we found Steep Steel, and Steep Steel helped us, James Kennedy helped us put out an RFP. He engaged the tower consultant on commission for us and negotiated lease amendments, and we received 2 proposals. Steep Steel is a published expert in cell towers and provided and will continue to provide many hours of education and guidance to staff for a 6% commission, which turns out to be $65,100. For this, Mr. Kennedy additionally negotiated higher rents with 2 of the carriers, which helps bring in the highest proposals. Wireless Propco LLC produced a proposal of $1,078,996, and TowerPoint produced a proposal of $1,085,000 plus 50% of the revenue sharing. So in the park, they built into the proposal or in the agreement that they could add up to 500 square feet of additional space, and then any revenue that brings in will split 50-50 with TowerPoint. So we also addressed some concerns, Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Chaffin, on the easement and site management agreement language to be sure that staff's concerns about the tower at the police department are addressed. Both gentlemen conveyed that these concerns are already addressed and controlled in the carrier agreement, which there we have for both of the leases that we're proposing to enter into this agreement on. They still have some time on them. Sam Brannon is almost will be negotiated by TowerPoint, and Mr. Kennedy already negotiated the 1545 pool lease. Yuba City is additionally still the landlord and the agency that may approve or deny permits for plans that do not support the city's mission. So we still have a great deal of control over what goes on these towers. So I've got 3 recommendations: adopt resolution and award easement and site management agreement at 1545 pool for $648,000 plus 50% additional, well, not that part, and authorize the city manager to execute related documents, and then adopt a resolution to award easement agreement at 806 Gray for $437,000 plus 50% additional revenue, and authorize the city manager to execute related documents, and then authorize me to make a supplemental appropriation to receive the revenue. Do you have any questions?
Through the mayor, thank you for the presentation. Do we retain the right to have them camouflage those towers? So
I think that's a question for Mr. Kennedy, if he's got his mic on, if he's close.
Folks, happy to speak with you again this evening. The answer to that is likely no. I mean, when we talk about camouflaging towers, that's usually done when a tower is initially constructed, right, at the very beginning. So these towers are existing. Crown's been there for a while, as has, and you have your own tower. Now, the city would have the option of camouflaging their own tower, which is still theirs. But in order to get Crown Castle to do so, would probably be a tough fight.
thank you.
Any question?
Certainly.
Any member of the public care to comment? Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor. Would the city still maintain the rights to decide what sort of frequency or wavelengths or antennas will go on these antennas, let's say 20 years from now? you have a new technology, and maybe the city would not like certain antennas to go on these towers. Would we still maintain that right or not? Or are we giving it away with the lease?
James, could you hear that question? I don't think the microphone's on.
Let me just say that, remember, the city still retains, where's the government hat? The city still issues permits for new applications on these towers. That won't change. So what they're selling is the rights to the landlord portion, right, where the city is the landlord in each of these leases. But it won't do anything to prevent you from declining permits that you would otherwise be able to decline, or, you know, in the future. It doesn't change the city's police powers in that respect.
So the tower has to provide plans. And so in the case of 1545 Pool, the police department, the Tower Police Department that the city owns and city has communication equipment on, the frequency has to be approved, and it cannot interfere with the police communications and the safety communications. Not only that, the tower is almost at capacity. It's like something like 92% capacity. So the equipment that can be added on can not bring the tower above its weight capacity. It's only rated for so much. And then there's got to be space enough on the tower to allow for no frequency interference. So these are the things that we would evaluate prior to any kind of equipment change to the tower. Now, the tower at Gray Avenue is a carrier-owned tower, and so they have the control over that tower more so. They still have to figure that the equipment, there are equipment limitations and frequency limitations. So FCC will only approve a certain frequency, so they have to be at that frequency.
All right, thank you. Any other?
Let me just add one point there. In each of these leases, there are interference clauses, so it's designed to prevent those types of events occurring in the future, say with some equipment that is unanticipated today. So, you know, the tenants that are there are protected, and it puts the city in a better position with respect to the permitting to kind of prevent problems and control those issues in the future to the extent that anything arises.
All right, thank you, James. Any other member of the public care to comment further? All right, we can bring it back, or unless there's any further questions from council, we can take a motion.
City Attorney, do you have to go through the language on this?
Nope, you can just move staff's recommendation.
Okay, I'd like to move staff recommendation item C, A, B, and C.
So that's 6A, B, and C?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, I have a first and second to adopt staff's recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And one opposed. Passes unanimously. Moving on to number 7. Development Plan 24-01 and Rezone 24-02, Sutter County Schools Career Training and Conference Center. Welcome, Doug.
Mayor, Council, good evening. So this item went before our Planning Commission on August 28th of last month. There was no opposition expressed to the Planning Commission, and there was a unanimous recommendation for approval to your council. So this is the Sutter County Schools Career Training and Conference Center. Includes both a development plan as well as a rezoning of the property. Project site is located south of Highway 20 on the east side of Harder Parkway. It's a 2.5-acre site just east of the intersection of Harder Parkway and the extension of Spirit Way. Primary access into the property will be provided by that intersection at Harder and Spirit. There's going to be a secondary access to be provided on the east side of the property through the existing school, Sutter County Schools property, and then a third access on property they own to the south. So the project is a 38,000 square foot, two-story office building for administrative, educational, conference center for Sutter County Superintendent of Schools. Includes 21 classrooms, conference rooms, office space. Staff of 60 is anticipated to serve a population of 305 students, 171 on-site student teacher parking spaces, as well as landscaping. Kind of zooming out, getting the big picture view, you'll see that the Sutter County Schools owns the property to the east, the southeast, and south. There's also a three-story office building. The vacant property just to the north is zoned regional commercial, so that's our C3, which matches what the two car dealerships are also zoned. And high school located just to the west. Now, I would bring your attention for the next slide to the property just west of the Jeep dealership. You might remember it was in January of 2023. We brought forward a parcel map, a rezoning, and a general plan amendment that actually removed an old overlay zone on that property. Well, now that the school's property wishes to develop, we're actually proposing to do the same thing for this property. So the X19 overlay includes some outdated requirements that have subsequently, frankly, just been replaced with new programs the city has to require intersection improvements to be made timely as part of developing the properties. So the property today is zoned an office commercial X19. They're going to maintain that office commercial. We're just going to remove that X19 overlay district. Here's what the site plan looks at. I think it's important to recognize that Spirit Way will not continue further to the west because the land further to the west is already developed. Here's that circulation into the property. It will exit to the east. It can also exit to the south, as I mentioned. Trash waste receptacles are located out of the public eye in the southeast corner. Regarding design review, this two-story building includes significant horizontal and vertical articulation. There's several tower features. They include a variety of materials being used: metal, faux wood, concrete, various scoring patterns, a large number of windows, most with decorative awnings. Mechanical equipment will be screened from public right-of-way. Here's several elevation views of the project: north elevation, east, south, as well as west. Some other views of the project. Kind of zoomed out a little bit, gives you a feel for what it's going to look like. Landscaping's been designed to become compliant with city standards. We did add a condition requiring the landscape strips along Harder to match the existing adjacent landscaping to the south, including shade trees for consistency with the look of the street. Traffic study was prepared for the project. It determined that the project would result in approximately 643 additional vehicle trips per day. Traffic study modeled the distribution of those trips, with most of them going to the Spirit Way, Harder Parkway, 20% going to the south, Lassen Boulevard, and then 18% going to the east to Klamath Lane. Now, the traffic study did conclude that on a long-term cumulative basis, so what we mean by that is build out of the area plus project. And so when you look at that scenario, it would in fact lower the level of service at two intersections to below our standard. But the way that's addressed is those intersections are already identified to needing to be signalized in the future. And so as a result, conditions have been added that requires the project pay a fair share to signalize the Harder Parkway Spirit Way intersection in the future, and then the Walton Avenue Lassen Boulevard intersection, which is over to the east. Now, with regard to environmental review, we did prepare an environmental assessment consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act and guidelines. Impact categories identified where mitigation was needed included greenhouse gases, geology and soils, transportation, and tribal cultural resources. Standard mitigation measures that we put on a lot of projects were carried forward onto this project. With the mitigation included, a mitigated negative declaration has been recommended by the Planning Commission for this project. Planning Commission also made recommendations on specific findings to approve the development plan, which are included in your staff report, resolution, and ordinance, and also for the rezoning to remove that overlay zone. So the recommendation tonight is to conduct a public hearing and then adopt a resolution of the City Council approving the environmental assessment, adopting a mitigated negative declaration subject to the conditions and mitigations, approve the development plan for Sutter County Schools Career Training Conference Center, located on the southeast corner of Harder Parkway and an extension of Spirit Way, and then introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City adopting the rezoning for the project located at the location I've already discussed, and waive the first reading. So with that, that would conclude my comments unless you have any questions.
Through the mayor, looks like a good infill project. Are they subject to development fees?
That is a great question. We have added a condition that they are to pay development impact fees unless they can demonstrate to our satisfaction that they are somehow exempt.
Else?
Go ahead, Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. Libby, for that presentation. Point of clarification, you mentioned a traffic light at Lassen and Walton, and then Spirit Way and what?
At Harder, just adjacent to the project site.
Okay. Do we have a timeline on this project?
Well, so there's not a specific timeline. The reason why is because we don't know when the area is going to build out. So the impact was triggered at the kind of cumulative plus project scenarios that was kind of build out of the larger area. So the developer is required to pay their fair share for those traffic signal improvements, and then Public Works will monitor that, and when the signalization is needed, that's when it will happen at some point in the future.
Thank you.
To the mayor. Mr. Libby, I was wondering, when I was reviewing this, there's no solar attached to any of this that I could see?
They would be required to comply with Title 24 as part of their getting permits for it. So I would say that although solar may not be visible, there could still be solar on the rooftop.
I didn't see it anywhere.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, that's all.
All right. We're going to go ahead and do a public hearing on this item. Public hearing for the development plan 24-01 and rezone 2402 Sutter County Schools Career Training Center and Conference Center is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? All right. Hearing no further comment, I'll close the public hearing, bring matter back to council for action. Any action?
Okay. Through the mayor, I'd like to move to accept staff's recommendations for items B and C of number 7.
Perfect.
Second.
And a second. Did you have something,
Sorry,
Shannon?
except for item C, it must be read.
Oh.
Would you like me to read it, or would you prefer to?
You know what? You read tons faster than I do, so go for it.
Thank you. Item C is to introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City to adopt Rezone 2407 for the Sutter County Schools Career Training and Conference Center, project located at the southeast corner of Harder Parkway and an extension of Spirit Way, assessors parcel number 63-010-146 and 147 by title only, and waive the first reading. Thank you.
All right, we have a first and second to approve item number 7, B, and the entirety of C. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Moving on to number 8, 2023 CDBG Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
Mr. Mayor, who was the
Yes,
second?
sir.
Who was the second on the, is Councilmember Shaw? Thank you so much. Or Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah. All right.
You'll have me, sir.
We're good. Happy about that.
Okay. So for this next item, Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. Well, nothing says it's a government report than wording it like that, right? Abbreviated CAPER. So this is basically an annual housekeeping item that we need to bring forward this time of year. It tracks the city's progress utilizing CDBG funds during the program year. So the most recent program year, it coincides actually with our fiscal year, so it ended June 30th. Shows how we use the funds to meet our housing and community development goals outlined in our 5-year consolidated plan. Here's some of the funding allocations that were called out in the 2023. Just hitting a few of them: the Homeless Consortium, the Gleaners Food Bank, the Freed for Independent Living Home Repair Modification, Habitat for Humanity, Exterior Home Repair, our Senior Center kitchen updates, and one of the bigger projects is ADA public facility improvements in the city. So the program year funding, so the city typically gets about $550 to maybe just over $600,000 a year of CDBG funds. Now you'll see here that $820,000 total expenditures occurred, and that includes funding from previous year allocations. And so total expenditures continue to progress towards our community development goals. To just to highlight a couple of things, so $14,900 was expended in a total of 10 extremely low and moderate income disabled or senior households were assisted through the Freed Home Repair Project. And then Habitat for Humanity's Housing Preservation Program helped 3 low-mod income homeowners with exterior repairs such as roofing, siding to maintain existing housing stock. The Homeless Consortium used $45,000 to help 516 people who are experiencing homelessness. And then the Gleaners Food Bank Home Delivery Program for seniors helped 243 seniors with the $14,164 expended. So the big project was an ongoing citywide effort to improve the sidewalks for ADA compliance and curb improvements in low-mod census tracts. So about $405,000 was expended in our area for that, and $168,000 is left for future projects. So with this, we're required to do public outreach annually. It includes publishing a notice in the newspaper. There's a 15-day comment period, commenced September 6th, runs until September 22nd. And then as part of that, we're asking your council to conduct a public hearing and then approve the 2023 CAPER, adopting a resolution authorizing staff to submit the necessary documents to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Did you have something, sir? Mike? No. You were to, okay. All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Let's see here, where am I? Public hearing for 2023 CDBG Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on the issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any public comment on the item? Nothing. Hearing no further comment, I am closing public hearing and bringing the matter back to council. This is just number B.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Move to adopt a resolution approving the 2023 CAPER and authorizing staff to submit all necessary documents to HUD.
Second.
I have a first and second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed is none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And number 9, City Council endorsement of Measure D. There's our city manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. All right, so I'm going to take this opportunity to kind of walk us to how we've gotten to this point with Measure D. So the city's current sales tax rate is 7.25%, of which the city receives 1%. 4% goes to the state general fund, and approximately 2.25% goes to Sutter County. The Revenue Ad Hoc Committee in December of last year recommended that the city move forward with a general 1% sales tax led by Yuba City within city limits, with a priority based upon what the residents express of roads and public safety. Revenue share with Sutter County, include a Citizens Oversight Committee with no competing overlapping initiatives and in effect until ended by voters. So there's been a lot of questions related to general versus special, with the general requiring a 50% plus one approval and a special requiring a 2/3 approval. So I went back and looked at the last few elections. So for the primaries this year, March 2024, you can see a city general tax majority vote, 10 out of 12 measures passed. If you go to a city special tax, which required a 2/3 vote, 4 of 7 measures passed. And I also just want to show that looking at this county general tax, there's one measure and it passed. And then the county special tax, there were 3 measures and one of those passed. Going back to November 2022, city general tax measures of 119, 98 passed, compared to city special tax requiring a 2/3 vote, 10 out of 19 passed. So an 82% approval rating for general versus a 53% for special. Going back to November 2020, the city general tax majority vote, 108 out of 132 passed for a rate of 82%, versus the city special tax at a 2/3 vote was 6 out of 14. So 82% compared to 43%. The other thing that I want to point out is going back to the November 2022, you can see in here there's the city initiative special tax majority vote right here. So this is a citizen-led initiative, and with citizen-led initiatives, even though they're a special tax, they require 50% plus one approval rating. So you can see that the majority vote measures pass at a much higher rate as compared to the special tax measures. So again, priorities that City Council has identified based upon feedback from residents are roads. We have a $150 million backlog of road maintenance that needs to be done. Fire operations to maintain critical staffing levels and response times, and to replace Fire Station number 1 to accommodate 2 engine companies. And then police operations, adding dedicated homelessness response personnel, creating a citywide clean team, and then also providing police services to the Walton Happy Park area. And then also council reflected a strong desire to support Sutter County with services that benefit Yuba City residents. So back in June, City Council adopted a resolution to establish the tasks, objectives, composition, and member qualifications for a citizen oversight committee. That committee would be comprised of 5 either residents or business owners within the city. They would need to be registered voters and over the age of 18 to be able to apply. And here's some of the items that they would be required to do. One of the things we note is that they have to attend a minimum of 2 meetings per year, but they could hold more than that. In July, we brought forward the item to actually place the measure on the ballot. At that point in time, the City Council unanimously approved placing Measure D on the ballot, and here's the ballot language. In September, this last meeting, City Council approved, authorized the mayor to execute a revenue sharing agreement with Sutter County. In that revenue sharing agreement, we would share 33% of the proceeds, equivalent proceeds generated by Measure D, but we'd be sharing that equivalent amount from our Bradley Burns sales tax. And then the city would retain 67% of that. So if Measure D passes, it is estimated to generate $17.5 million in local revenue. And the alternative to the recommendation tonight is to not take a support position on Measure D. So the recommendation is to adopt a resolution endorsing Measure D, the proposed city transaction use sales tax measure, on the November 5th, 2024 ballot. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from you guys? Probably not. Yeah, comments after. All right, do we have any comments from the public? I know, Bijan, you would like to speak on the item, so feel free to step on up. If anybody else would like to, you can get ready.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. and the honorable city council members. It's good to be with you here tonight. My name is Bijan Parhizgar. I'm a registered civil engineer with the state of California with 38 years of engineering work behind me. And I possess a master's degree with emphasis on structural engineering. I was a construction manager for the last 25 years of my career for the 9 counties of Northern California, responsible for all construction activities with project budgets from $80 million to $260 million annually, and a staff of between 100 to 120 engineers, technicians, and administrators, not necessarily in that order. I'd like to start by acknowledging and thanking the city efforts and hard work for trying to improve the well-being of the city and its citizens. I also recognize and appreciate the advantages for the city for having an independent source of fund without any constraints or regulations that may come with funds or grants provided by the state and the federal government. In early 1990s, Los Angeles County MTA, the taxpayers endorsed or passed a half-a-cent sales tax for 20 years. It was called Prop C. That would generate $2 billion in 20 years to have Caltrans design, purchase right-of-way, and construct 400 miles of high-occupancy vehicle lanes. The program was a success. In 2016, and that was a special tax, special funded tax, not a forever tax. In 2016, Ventura County voters passed a 25-year, 0.5% special sales tax, Measure O, for transportation purposes. In our prior election cycle here in Sutter County, they proposed a 1% general increase for a 9-year duration, which failed with a narrow margin. Assuming the best scenario and city getting 17.5 or 17.1 million annually, after 33% goes to Sutter County, that leaves roughly $11.5 million annually for the city, which is coincidentally the same amount that we need every year to just keep up with our deferred maintenance for the roads in our area. In other words, if we don't do anything, if we spend the $11.5 million every year, we're just going to barely keep up with our road conditions. According to the 22-23 grand jury report, pages 85 through 89, the road program identifies $11.5 million shortfall just to keep up with deferred road maintenance. This amount was also corroborated by the city staff last night during a meeting at the Sutter County Taxpayers Association. Page 95 of the grand jury report provides certain recommendations to be met, and then recommendation number 4 states considering a tax increase, quote, for only road pavement maintenance, end of quote, a special tax. Instead of proposing a special tax and fully fund one program adequately, city is proposing a forever general tax increase, planning to share 33% of the money with the Sutter County and then try to fund road repairs, fire department, police, district attorney, public safety, while the math clearly demonstrate there will not be enough funds generated to fully fund one program alone. Citizens vote and put their trust in you to do the right things in the right way for the city, instead of calculating which options has a better chance of passing. It brings you across as we are short of funds and we will do whatever to get it. I wish the city would pour all this energy and effort in trying to pursue the citizens of a special tax increase instead. With a special tax increase proposal, the citizens will be assured their tax money will be spent exactly as intended or as they voted, rather than being concerned if the city is going to fund pay increases, pay for future bond repayments, retirements, and other expenditures. Hence, in order to maintain city's credibility and maintain public trust, I urge the city to consider a special tax increase instead of a general tax increase. Thank you for your attention, and I'd like to thank Mr. Boomgarden and Ms. Langley for attending the couple meetings the last few weeks. It was very informative, and thanks again.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay. Our turn.
I appreciate the kind words, Bijan, thank you. And to the Sutter County Taxpayers Association, it was probably the two meetings that were the most intense of the many meetings that we've held with the public. And they were all good questions. I think it's very important for us as city council folks to listen to all the concerns. I wanted to mention a couple things just really quickly. I'm pretty close to this item, having been on the ad hoc committee and having been, working for the city for a long time, and especially being here on the council for 5 years. There was a time and a place where I did not foresee myself approving a sales tax ask. I just didn't. But as I dove into the budget along with my colleagues, and spent 5 years since 2019, along with staff, poring over the line-by-line items, of which I was very familiar with that budget already, and really working closely to determine the needs versus the wants, being fiscally responsible, spending the public's money as if I would spend my own, whether it was in my business at Valley Truck and Tractor, or whether it was as a fire chief here in Yuba City, or whether it was my own home here in Yuba City. So for me to turn around and say, hey, look, I think it's appropriate for the city to propose a sales tax increase to the public, it is not something I take lightly. However, I see, again, with the caveat of my past histories, it is something that I think we owe it to the citizens to ask them and make the case that it is necessary for us. I don't think we're sounding the alarm as if we're going to shut everything down. We will continue to be fiscally prudent as we have been for the last 5 years. But I also have just a couple things I'd like to mention. This comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The inflation rate in the nation since 2019, which is the time that Dave and I and Sean were on the council, and we were greatly joined by council members Pasquale and Kirchner, the inflation rate's been the total inflation rate over that period of time is 23.03%. That's an increase, 23.03%. It averages I want to make sure I get this right, 4.23% per year is how much increase. We have not asked anybody for a sales tax increase during that period. And as the city manager just proposed, in 2020, there was 122 cities that felt the need to go out. We did not. In 2022, 119 cities went out. 2024, 12 went out. So a total of 263 cities found the need. Now, does that mean that because they did, we should? No, but I think it is a sign that the cities in California are under the gun with raising prices. You're asking us to manage your and my and our money with a 23% inflation rate since 2019. We're asking for 1%, and it's not on all items. It's only on those taxable items. The second thing that I want to mention is we talk about a forever tax. It's not a forever tax. The public has the right each and every election year to change the complexion of this council. If that council that is elected isn't doing what you want them to do, then you work to get new folks in, and then you could rescind the tax at any time that the council chose to do so. Am I correct, Mr. Chaffin?
Yes, you are, and the citizens could also do it themselves if they were so inclined.
So the fact that we decided to put it on as a tax without an end to it simply doesn't mean that it does go on forever. It just means that it could go on forever, and which I think is important. I think that I appreciate the grand jury's report in regards to its focus on roads, because that's certainly something that I've heard over the years that I've been on this council and watched them deteriorate and watched them. But that was their focus. I have a responsibility for essential services in the city of Yuba City. That's police, fire, roads, water, and sewer. Okay, I have to look at it, all of those things, and that's why this general sales tax incorporates bits and pieces of all that, because we have those needs in addition to the roads. Today, I saw a publication on social media, and I'll be done here, that somehow folks are trying to correlate Measure D with Prop 13. That's fake news, okay? There's enough fake news in the world going on right now. You know what? If you're not for the measure, I get it. That's the American way. But do so with honor. Let's not try to confuse the public by talking about Prop 13 as it connects to Measure D. To me, that's total BS. Sorry for the harsh language. Our measure, in addition to potentially having our support, has the support of small business owners in Yuba City. Read the ballot pamphlet. Each one of those folks that put the rebuttal are operating a business. They're responsible to their employees, and they're responsible to their families to stay open. They see the need. I see the need. And with that, I'll close my comments.
Very well said. Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Good. Go ahead.
Through the mayor. Mark, very well said. This is something, I remember when we came on the council years ago, there was scuttlebutt about doing a sales tax measure at that time. And in my opinion, it was half thought through, just like Measure A was just an election cycle ago. We've done the work. We've spent 5 years going through that budget to get to this conclusion. And as Mark said, we've got an entire city to take care of. And again, appreciate the grand jury's report, but it's in a perfect environment. You get to take one thing, make a recommendation, and go, this is it. But we've got so many more things, just as you worked on the roads and engineering, you've got a lot of things to take care of. What troubles me about the other things that I keep hearing is we've presented a spending plan of what the priorities are with what we need to do. And we keep hearing the same stuff regurgitate. 17 million or 11 million isn't enough. No, it's not. We need 150 million. But there are mechanisms. When you go buy a house in California, you don't just go write a check most of the times. You actually borrow the money, and then you pay it back over time. Part of the priorities in the plan is we've already identified from the city roads that can be very vital, and we can go borrow the money to fix those roads and have a hell of an impact on our community in the next 3 to 4 years. By the time we get the money and get the bidding and get everything done, and then our community starts looking more attractive to others that want to come here. So it all goes hand in hand, and we can't run in a silo going, focus just on one issue and do it with $11.5 million a year. Because that $11.5 million is going to become $14 million with inflation, and then it's going to become $20 million, and we're still going to be getting the $11.5 to $12 million. Start looking at this as you look at your checkbooks. With how you finance your own lives. That's what we are entrusted with to do. It's not our money, it's your money. It's our money together collectively as a city, and we got a city to take care of. So, I know that other cities have done different things and maybe not stayed to the course, but unlike what we heard when we first came on the council and was campaigning that year, and what I heard with Measure A, or I should say didn't hear with those two, was what are you going to do with it? This city and this council has been very, very transparent with it, and it gets pretty disheartening to see those things on social media to where people are just, spreading false things. And then the plan is the plan. I don't know any other way to explain it to you. The plan is the plan, and we need to do what's right. So with that, I want to thank you guys, because you guys put a hell of a lot of work in to get that initially. So, and this council's done a lot of good work. So I'm done unless there's any more comments.
All right.
Through the mayor, I can't add anything more than what those two gentlemen said. Hold me accountable. I've said that from day one. This is my community as well as your community. I've lived here my whole life, and it's needed. And like I say, if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, get rid of me or any one of us. With that, thank you, sir.
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
Boy, it's usually hard to follow Mark, and it certainly is tonight. But I appreciate everything that Councilmember Baumgarten, Shaw, the Vice Mayor, and Councilmember Pasquale have just said. I would like to add a couple of things. And I do appreciate the fact that you did your research on Southern California. You had exact numbers. You had data. And I appreciate that. If you take a look at in 22 when Chico, same time Measure A was proposed for the county and it went down, Chico was able to pass a revenue measure, and they're doing amazing things in the city of Chico, where our fire chief lives. And what they're doing with the roads, and it's something to see what can happen when you do a measure like this. Of course, I didn't run. My election campaign wasn't to raise taxes, but here we are. And Chico's just one of those places. Colusa had the same decision to make. Excuse me. Yes, Colusa had the same decision to make in 22 as well. I respect people's choices. If they're going to say no, they're going to say no. I'm just going to move on to the next individual and hopefully give them the tools to educate them to make that decision. Because unfortunately, if you see something on the ballot that you either are unaware of and you don't know about, the tendency is to vote no. And so I'm hoping that the voters in this community, when the time comes, they step up and do what's best for our community. So thank you.
It's important, we reiterate what Mark and Dave were saying, or we're all saying, that we only got to this point after a lot of resistance. Years and years of doing what we said we were going to do when we all ran for office, and that is be fiscal conservative and restrict and tighten the belt whenever we can. This city runs very lean and very efficient for what we've done. We have finally gotten to the point to where we need to ask the voters to contribute part to help this city balance our budget. We can hear the train coming. We see it coming. We've done a lot of research, and when you do the math, it doesn't take much. We are now at the point where revenues are not keeping up with expenses because of the aforementioned problems with the inflation. Municipalities are not immune from all the rising costs. Everybody is experiencing that, and here we are too. So in order to keep up services and enhance services and continue to improve the quality of life and the quality of what we have going on in Yuba City, is going to take money. That's the bottom line. In a way, to the point where a vote against this measure, in my opinion, is a vote in favor of decreased services and some things we're not going to like do, bad roads and everything else down the line that comes with when you do not have the money to keep up with the requirements to maintain the quality of services that we are used to providing. It's really as simple as that. Anybody who does not believe that is more than welcome to come and dig through and dive right into the budget, and we'll go line by line with you. We also we've been accused of, well, how do we know you're going to spend it on what you say? Well, David already mentioned that if we go ahead and finance some of these road repairs, when the folks can see fairly soon some results of that tax measure by way of improved road conditions, the debt service required for that will accommodate or account for a lot of that increased revenue that we're taking in. So it's automatically going to what we were talking about. Also, the way you know, Mike had mentioned it already. If we're lying to you, get rid of us. But we're asking that we reach down as a community, your city, our city, and remember the trust that was placed in us to put us here in the first place. We're not going to lie to you. We all want the same thing. Some folks have this built-in thing. They're against government. No matter what we say or what anybody up at a dais says is automatically going to be incorrect. That's the beauty of local government, in that we can have, we see each other in restaurants, we see each other at the grocery store, in schools, and I have people knocking on my front door. So that's the beauty of local small government. We can talk to each other. We are not here to lie to you. We are here to work together to make our city the best it can be. And today in 2024, a major step in that direction is the ask that a majority of voters agree with the fact that, yeah, we need some money to keep things where we want to be and move forward into the future. So, no, one of the main things is if something's already been said, you don't need to repeat it. Just be, you want to be additive, and I think I've done a little bit of both. So that is that. I'll ask one more time for any public comment. One more time for any comment from my colleagues. That being said, we'll move on. And we have to adopt the resolution.
Through the mayor.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I move we adopt a resolution endorsing Measure D, the proposed city transactions and use sales tax measure on the November 5th, 2024 ballot.
Second.
I have a first and second to approve item number 9, adopting the resolution endorsing Measure D. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 10, 2024 Nagar Kirtan Sikh Parade. Status update.
Thank you. So on September 9th, we sent a letter to the temple president per our special event permit process. That event is designated as a Tier 1 event, and so we are required to respond within 60 days of application as to whether or not they've complied with the requirements of the permit application. As of this date, they have not. There are still 16 items that are outstanding to be completed in order for the city to issue a special event permit. A denial letter was sent, as I mentioned, on September 9th. That does not mean that the temple cannot continue to gather the items and submit them to comply with the special event permit process. But if for some reason they are unable to, the city is going to continue to plan for this event. Our police and fire services are going to continue to ensure that the residents' safety is of the greatest importance. But we also wanted to note that without complying with the permit process, that would shift a lot of the liability onto the temple in terms of the specific items that we're requesting. We would need to be able to issue that permit. And so without the ability to issue the permit, we just wanted to give the temple notice that with that, there's liability associated with that. So at this point in time, a lot of items still remaining.
Thank you very much. Sir, would you care to say anything? I can do it. We have been following the letter being posted out to the temple president. I've been in communication briefly with him today. Was told that one of the items had been prepared and was going to be doing so at a meeting this morning, and I would be receiving a copy of that. And as of right now, I have not. And that's the only update I can add to what you've just said, ma'am.
Yeah, the other thing that I want to note is I've heard a lot of chatter about, the city's shutting down the parade, or we're going to close roads so that the parade can't happen in the city. That is not the discussion that's taking place. We're not talking about shutting down the parade. We're not talking about barricading off the road so the parade cannot proceed through city streets. What we're really talking about is compliance with our permit process. We require that other events obtain a permit, and we strive very hard to work with those organizations that are trying to do large events to comply with our permit process. And so this is really an administrative function of trying to get compliance. And if the items aren't submitted, then we cannot issue a permit, just like we wouldn't for any other organizations that don't comply.
And that's what's being communicated as well. It's definitely not something we want to do.
Right.
But we have timelines and we have requirements that we have to do. And so it's basically an administrative and formality. We're not going to stand in the way. We will, if something's going to happen regardless, we will be prepared and do the best we can. But there was no choice but to do it this way, unfortunately. So, and we continue to stand ready to help in any way possible. Sir, go ahead.
Through the mayor, I think it's one thing that might provide a little bit of clarifications. Why is the city offering a permit? I think it's important to note that when you have upwards of 100,000 people come in for a beautiful cultural event, which adds a lot to the quality of life in the city of Yuba City, it does come with some safety concerns. So the permit is identify, it's not a revenue measure, revenue gathering item. It is a item in an effort to provide safety for the parade goers or event goers, our residents, our ability to serve residents, our ability for our businesses to continue to do business and their employees to do business on those days. I don't personally believe, as a former public safety professional, that any of the asks that we identify in the permit process are outrageous given the potential size of the 3-day event and the risk it brings to our community. So I remain very hopeful that Temple leadership continues to tick off and comply with certain permit requirements, because those permit requirements were established for the safety of everyone that's involved with that event.
Good. All right. Any comments from the public on the item? Seeing none, that will be it. Thank you very much. Any future agenda items, folks? Nope. Okay, we'll go on with the city manager's report as soon as she's able to sit down.
Okay, thank you. This Thursday night at Shanghai Garden Park from 5 to 7, Selective has coordinated a neighborhood meeting to discuss Landscape Maintenance District 1B. So residents that live in the Garden Highway area, Railroad area, kind of south of Lincoln, all the way down to Stewart, it impacts those residents. I know that they're based upon funding, there's very limited maintenance. Staff receives a lot of complaints. I know council receives a lot of complaints. And so we want to discuss options to address the landscape maintenance in that area. On Sunday, Community Services is hosting a fall festival at Gautier Aquatic Park from 11 to 2. They'll have a lot of carnival games, and then next Wednesday is Waffle Wednesday at the Senior Center, and next Friday, September 27th, is the Mayor's Bus Tour. So, thank you.
Looking forward to that for sure. Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two items to report on. We had the pleasure of attending the Cotton Rosser statue. I don't know what you would call it. What would you call it? Unveiling in Marysville. You may recall we as a council honored Mr. Cotton Rosser here in our chambers, and I think that this statue at the corner of 5th Street and at George Washington Park is truly an honor to a guy who meant a lot not only to our area but to the nation as it relates to his role as one of the top rodeo folks in the United States. The other thing was attended a LAFCO meeting. The highlight of what I want to report there is we're actually finally going to be getting underway with the Fire Municipal Services Review. I know Mr. Libby's heavily involved with that, but this should give us a pretty good picture of fire and life safety services as they are provided within Sutter County. And that is all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kirchner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency was canceled this month, but within the floodplain world, the Sutter County Resource Conservation District, you probably saw in the local paper, was awarded over $2 million for the design and permitting of essentially it's a salmon restoration project that should extend from roughly Whitaker Hall on the other side of the levee to Shanghai Bend. It's about a mile and a half worth of area that's going to be, once they obtain the actual construction grant for that, is really going to transform that part of our river in a good way. So I'm excited about that. I was not around for Gill Sizer, but you covered that, right? Is that yes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'll let you cover that one. With mosquito, we did the only action item, we had a closed session for the manager's evaluation and contract. Regional Water Authority, the action item was to support Proposition 4, and a yes on 4 supports issuing $10 billion in bonds to fund state and local parks, environmental projects, water infrastructure projects, energy projects, and flood protection projects. I attended the 9/11 ceremony at Station 1, which I think we all did, which is a very somber ceremony every year, but I was glad to be there. And then lastly, I was invited to participate in a delegation tour of some folks that were here from Israel. And the part of the tour I attended was we were over in Terra Buena doing a tour of an almond hauler. But it was neat to see the interest of and the similarities. You know, farmers are farmers, and so it was kind of neat to meet those folks. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Had no committee meetings in this last 2 weeks. However, I did attend the 9/11 ceremony at Station 1, which was always very somber. And then went over to Marysville a little later, and they had a Fools group, I guess, a fraternal organization for firefighters, and they did a beautiful job of their presentation as well. Went to the Rosser dedication. Very well done. I went by the other night, and it's quite beautiful to be actually if you haven't seen it at night, it's very nice. And I was had the opportunity going to the food bank fundraiser, and they do a lot of really good work. Last night at the Taxpayers Association, I stayed on for the whole meeting, and a lady had brought up that Meals on Wheels is going to be cut as of October. So it's even more important that we support whatever agency is trying to help people that are needing just food. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to be brief on these. I've attended a lot of the same things. The 9/11 ceremonies, Chief, excellent job by FD, as it always is. That's a day we will always remember. Attended the Cotton Rosser unveiling and dedication. If you don't know the Rosser family, learn about them. You will find out just what type of legends you have right here in our community, because it's Cotton and his entire family and what they mean to the rodeo world. Of course, did the Stampede. After that, had world-class athletes here for that. Attended the Air Force Ball, the second one that we've held out at Hard Rock. We do it in conjunction with the birthday of the Air Force every year. Committee meetings, had the RWMA, hot topics there still, 1383. In the coming months, we're going to be getting into commercial properties, apartments, things of that nature, where we've got to get things sorted between recyclables and trash and green waste, all of that stuff. So there's still more coming on that because we've got to get our diversion rates even higher because the state mandates are coming at us quick. We're running at about, I believe it was 62%, and they're wanting us to be here in the next few years north of like 90. So we got a long ways to go. Had a GSEC board meeting, and then the delegation that Wade was talking about was a delegation from Israel that GSEC partnered up with, and Ashley, she's not here, but she did a heck of a great job coordinating with not only Yuba City, but Sutter County, Yuba County, brought them to the entire region. They worked very well as a team. Very interested in getting with our farmers here, incorporated not only the municipalities, but the chamber, as well as the Farm Bureau, so that we could really learn more about what they could do for our economy, and likewise, if we were to do business with some of them. They're not trying to sell us commodities, but they have some really interesting technology that I've never seen, to where they could get right down to the specific tree in a specific orchard and the specific amount of water that's going on. It was really, really high tech because they pretty much farm in a desert over in Israel. So, so that's been my week. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good week. I had a fairly light one myself. I concur with the roster statue ceremony. It was quite moving, very well put together, and adds some significant attraction to that corner there in Marysville for many more years. Gil-Sizer was a brief meeting, as it typically is. One thing we did was approve accepting a grant to study the effects of the drainage and the ditches and the bridges, I believe, or culverts, I should say, in the northern part of the county by Live Oak due to the effects of climate change. So $300,000+ to probably learn what we already know. But you have to officially know it. The good news is we didn't have to pay near that, but probably 20 is what it comes out of different funds to pay for that, matching funds. However, it should be good moving into the future, because there was some some dredging that used to happen and some replacing some culverts and things, and this will get us on that right track. Also had the opportunity to meet with Vice Mayor and our city manager, with Roberto Ortega, who works for Congressman/Senator Alex Padilla, and we had a good discussion about infrastructure maintenance funding here locally, tiny home communities here locally, a Hometown Hero Memorial Park project there on Bridge Street. We're trying to enhance that area once we get the funding for that. And of course, the Union Pacific Railroad multi-use path conversion, talked about the right-of-way acquisition and dealing with Union Pacific to try to get that bike path into fruition. This is at least the third or fourth conversation we've had with folks with Washington. And of course, in Sacramento, the conversation is going on regularly. One good thing that we have is we have that feasibility study already concluded, and also we have the citizens group in favor of that support the project independently being formulated. Should be within the next couple of weeks to get the first or the second of probably many meetings going toward that end. And of course, we also discussed the expansion of Fire Station 1 with the senator's representative. Like I said, everything else has been pretty light, and nothing more to report for this round. That being said, we are done at semi-record 7:47. Thank you.